Have you ever noticed how life often surprises us at the very moment we think everything is under control? That's exactly what happened to Alexander Reed, a man whose life had always run like clockwork. Alexander wasn't just wealthy. He was one of the richest men in the city. A billionaire with glass towers under his name, companies scattered across continents, and a reputation colder than the steel and glass he built. People respected him, feared him, but very few dared to stand in his way. His rules were law, and his life was built on order, silence, and precision. So when he decided to leave New York for a few days of peace at his country mansion, he expected nothing less than perfection. No noise, no interruptions, just silence and the comfort of his own thoughts. But that night, when Alexander returned 3 days earlier than expected, something happened that would change everything. The marble floors of his mansion echoed with the sharp click of his polished shoes as he stepped inside. The air was cool, the house dimly lit, and he carried himself with the confidence of a man who believed every corner belonged to him. He had come home tired of endless meetings, of fake smiles from investors, of arguments that never seemed to end. That was all he wanted. But peace wasn't waiting for him here. From the distance, he heard something he never expected inside his mansion. Muffled voices. And not just voices, soft whimpers. The sound of children. His brows knitted together as his steps grew quicker, sharper. Who dared to disturb his sanctuary? Who had the audacity to bring noise into his house? He pushed open the door to the kitchen and froze. There, under the warm glow of the light, stood Maria Alvarez, his maid. She was wiping down the counter, her movements quick and nervous, as though she were trying to finish before someone walked in. But it wasn't her work that stunned Alexander. It was the sight of 2 tiny children strapped across her chest in a sling. Blonde-haired. Their little hands clung tightly to her blouse, their innocent faces pressed close to her heartbeat, as though she was their only shield against the world. Alexander's sharp eyes narrowed, his entire body stiff with fury. What the hell is this? His voice cut through the room like a blade. Maria stiffened. Her hands froze, and for a moment her breath hitched. But she didn't crumble. Slowly she turned to face him, her eyes lowered with respect, though fear flickered in their depths. "Mr. Reed, you weren't supposed to be home yet. That's your excuse." His tone was laced with ice. Not an explanation, not an apology, just that I caught you too soon. Who are they? And why are they here? The children whimpered at his voice, sensing the storm in the room. Instinctively, Maria rocked them gently, whispering soft words in Spanish to calm them. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled. "They are my sister's children," she said softly. Alexander blinked, then let out a cold, bitter laugh. "So what? They're yours now. Since when do I pay you to turn my house into a nursery?" "They are not usually here," Maria explained quickly, her voice rushing against his fury. "Only the past 3 days. 3 days." His jaw clenched, his voice rising. 3 days you've broken my rules. 3 days you've lied to me." Maria swallowed hard, but then something inside her shifted. Slowly, she lifted her chin. For the first time, she looked him in the eye, not as a servant, but as a woman who had nothing left to lose. "Their mother is dead," she said, her voice trembling yet firm. "Their father vanished without a word. They have no one else but me and my mother. She has raised them since the funeral, but she is old, too old. Last week she fell. Her body cannot carry 2 babies anymore. I brought them here because I had no choice." Alexander's lip curled, his eyes burning with anger. "Not my problem. You should have found another solution. A shelter, a neighbor, anyone but me." Maria's eyes flashed with something fierce, something that startled even him. "A shelter? Do you know what happens to babies in those places?" she asked, her voice breaking yet growing stronger with every word. "How quickly they disappear into a system that doesn't care. My mother begged me not to. She told me, 'Maria, you keep them close. Don't let strangers take them.' So I brought them here. I thought maybe you wouldn't notice. You thought wrong. Alexander's voice thundered as he slammed his palm against the counter. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the quiet kitchen. One of the babies whimpered louder, clinging to Maria's chest. Do you understand how serious this is? You deceived me, he growled. Maria's voice cracked, but she didn't back down. Adjusting the sling, she pressed the children closer like a shield. Yes, I deceived you, she admitted. But I did not break my promise to my sister. On her deathbed, I swore I would keep them safe. If you want to fire me, fire me. But I will not abandon them. Her words hung heavy in the air. For a man like Alexander, used to control, used to obedience, her defiance struck him harder than any insult. She was no longer just his maid. In that moment she was a sister, a daughter, a protector. A woman cornered by life, but refusing to surrender. His eyes narrowed. His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. You think I should let this slide? Maria's tears glistened, but her voice was steady. No, I think you built your empire by making decisions others were too afraid to make. And this is mine. I chose them. Silence filled the room. Alexander studied her, fury boiling inside him, but something else flickered beneath it, something he hadn't felt in years. His gaze shifted to the babies. One small hand had slipped free from the sling, reaching into the air as though searching for something solid to hold onto. And in that moment, for the first time in a long time, Alexander felt a weight on his chest. Not from anger, not from power, but from something far more human. Something he thought money had erased long ago. And that, my friend, was the moment everything began to change. Alexander Reed had always believed he was immune to emotions. In his world, numbers mattered, contracts ruled, and loyalty was bought, not earned. Yet here he was, standing in his own kitchen, shaken by the trembling words of a maid. That night he didn't sleep. He lay awake in his king-sized bed, staring at the ceiling, haunted by the image of those tiny hands reaching into the air. His anger should have been enough to fire her, to throw them all out without a second thought. But something about Maria's eyes, the way they burned with both fear and courage, kept replaying in his mind. By morning Alexander was restless. He wandered downstairs earlier than usual. The scent of coffee drifted through the air, but what caught him wasn't the smell, it was the sound. Soft laughter. In the corner of the kitchen, Maria sat with the children. The boy had found a spoon, banging it happily against the table, while the girl clapped in delight. Maria smiled, her face glowing, her eyes alive with a tenderness Alexander hadn't seen in years. For a moment the billionaire just stood there, frozen. It was a scene of warmth, of family, something his empire of steel and glass could never buy. But the warmth turned to ice the moment Maria noticed him. She jumped to her feet, clutching the children protectively. "Good morning, Mr. Reed," she whispered. He said nothing at first. Instead, he walked over slowly, his footsteps echoing. He stared at the children, then back at her. "I should have fired you yesterday." Maria swallowed hard but didn't move. "Yes, sir." "Then why are you still here?" Her lips trembled. Because I prayed you might understand." The words pierced him deeper than she knew. Understand. No one in his life ever asked him to understand. They demanded, they obeyed, they negotiated. But this was different. Alexander turned away sharply, pouring himself a cup of coffee just to hide the storm on his face. 1 week, he said finally. That's all. 1 week to find another solution. After that they're gone. Do you hear me? Maria's shoulders sagged, but relief washed over her eyes. She nodded quickly. Yes, sir. Thank you. But what Alexander didn't expect was how much could change in just 1 week. On the second day, his business partners flew in for a dinner meeting at the mansion. The dining hall glowed with chandeliers, the table set with gold-trimmed plates. Deals worth millions were being discussed, until the sharp cry of a baby echoed down the hall. The men exchanged awkward glances, murmuring under their breath. Alexander's jaw tightened as he excused himself, striding toward the noise. He was ready to scold Maria, ready to demand silence. But when he opened the door, his anger slipped. Maria was rocking the baby girl, whispering lullabies. But the baby wouldn't calm, until Maria handed her over. The moment Alexander held her, the cries softened. The baby stared at him with wide, curious eyes, her tiny hand reaching for his tie. The partners waited impatiently in the dining hall, but Alexander didn't return right away. He stayed there, holding her, his heart betraying the man he thought he was. On the fourth day, he found himself lingering by the garden. Maria was there with the twins, letting them crawl on a blanket under the sun. Their laughter filled the air, mixing with the rustle of the wind. Alexander watched quietly, almost hidden, but not enough. Maria turned and caught his gaze. For a moment their eyes locked. Not as employer and maid, but as two people carrying secrets, bound by something bigger than themselves. And then came the sixth day. The day that shattered Alexander's carefully built world. He returned home late, exhausted, only to hear raised voices in the kitchen. Maria's. And another, deep, rough, unfamiliar. He rushed in to find a stranger, a man with wild eyes and dirty clothes, clutching Maria by the arm. "Where are they?" the man demanded. Maria's face was pale, her body trembling as she shielded the twins behind her. "You can't take them," she cried. The man's eyes darted toward Alexander, and in that moment, the truth spilled like broken glass. "I'm their father," the stranger shouted. "You stole them from me." Alexander froze, his mind spinning. "Father." Maria had said the man vanished. She said he abandoned them. But here he was, raging, desperate, and ready to fight. And suddenly, Alexander realized this wasn't just about children anymore. This was about secrets, lies, and a truth that could destroy everything. For the first time in his life, Alexander Reed didn't know what to do. The air in the kitchen was thick, heavy with fear, confusion, and the weight of secrets about to break open. Alexander stood frozen, his chest tight, as the ragged man tightened his grip on Maria's arm. The twins whimpered, their small cries slicing through the silence like glass shattering. "Let her go," Alexander's voice thundered, low and commanding. The stranger sneered. "You don't understand. They're mine. My children. She stole them." Maria shook her head violently, tears streaming down her face. "No. You abandoned them. You left my sister to die alone, and you vanished. You don't get to come back now, not after all this time." The man's eyes blazed with desperation. His voice cracked, no longer sharp but trembling. "I didn't vanish. I was in prison. I didn't know she died until months later. By the time I got out they were gone. Taken from me. I've been searching ever since." The room spun for Alexander. He didn't know who to believe. Maria, who had shown nothing but fierce love, or this broken man whose pain seemed too real to be fabricated. The twins wailed louder, and instinctively, Alexander moved toward them. He scooped them up, cradling them against his chest. The room shifted, the billionaire holding two fragile lives, while two adults stood locked in a battle of truth and betrayal. The confrontation didn't end that night. Alexander forced the man to leave under threat of police, but the echoes of his words lingered. Prison. Searching. Stolen. Maria sat across from him at the long dining table after the children had fallen asleep. Her hands shook as she clasped them together. "I swear to you, Mr. Reed, I did not steal them. He left. He was gone for months before the funeral. My sister begged me with her last breath to protect her babies. And I did." Alexander studied her face, every tear, every tremor in her voice. He had built his empire on detecting lies, on seeing through facades. And right now he saw nothing but truth in her eyes. Still the doubt gnawed at him. If what he says is true, Maria, if he really is their father, her chin lifted, trembling but defiant, then he will have to prove he is worthy. Blood alone does not make a father. The words hit Alexander harder than he expected. For the first time he wondered what it meant to be worthy, not of power, not of wealth, but of love, of family. The following days were a storm. Lawyers called, documents were pulled, the stranger's story investigated. And through it all, Alexander found himself changing. He spent more time with the children, not out of duty but out of something deeper. Their laughter filled his empty mansion. Their small fingers wrapped around his own, and each touch chipped away at the stone wall around his heart. Maria noticed it too. She watched quietly as he read them bedtime stories, as he clumsily rocked them to sleep, as his once cold eyes softened every time the twins smiled. "Why are you doing this?" she asked one evening, her voice barely above a whisper. Alexander hesitated, his gaze fixed on the sleeping children. "Because I spent my whole life thinking I didn't need anyone. But maybe I was wrong." The truth about the father finally came to light. His prison records confirmed his story, but so did his neglect. He had a history of violence, abandonment, and broken promises. A court would never hand him the children without a fight, and Alexander Reed was a man who never lost battles. Standing before the judge weeks later, Alexander did something no one expected. He stepped forward not as a billionaire protecting his reputation, but as a man protecting two innocent lives. "I am not their blood," he said firmly, his voice echoing through the courtroom. "But I have seen what abandonment does. I will not allow it again. If Maria stands with me, then I will ensure these children have a future filled with love, safety, and hope." Maria's breath caught in her throat. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but this time they were not of fear. They were of relief, of gratitude, of something that felt dangerously close to love. The ruling was made. Custody went to Maria, with Alexander listed as guardian support. The stranger vanished into the shadows of his own mistakes, leaving behind the children he once called his. Back at the mansion, life was different. The marble halls still gleamed, the chandeliers still shone, but the silence was gone. Laughter filled the rooms now. The cries of babies, the warmth of family dinners, the hum of a home reborn. One night, as Maria tucked the children into bed, Alexander lingered at the doorway. Their eyes met in the quiet glow of the lamp. "You kept your promise to your sister," he said softly. "And you kept one you didn't have to make," she replied. For a moment, the man who thought he was unshakable and the woman who refused to break stood united, not by duty but by choice. And though Alexander Reed would never admit it out loud, deep in his heart he knew the truth. Wealth isn't measured in bank accounts or empires, but in the lives you choose not to walk away from. My friend, if this story touched your heart, don't leave without sharing your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more stories of courage, love, and the power of keeping promises, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Until next time, remember, sometimes the richest hearts are found in the most unexpected places.